guys, Miss Corcoran here, and today we are going to do the first steps of our TylerSpangler composite collage project. As you can see, I am not in Illustrator today. I am in Adobe Photoshop 2022. So the programs are different. Some things are similar, some things are different. And we are going to point out those small changes as we go into our project. But the first thing is I am going to do a new file just for you guys. I'm going to go File New. And sometimes you're going to have your default units of measure set to pixels or points or picas. And today we are going to do inches. And we're just going to do a simple 8.5 by 11. Make sure your orientation is set your portrait. And then say Create. Okay. Now I'm going to Command 0, Fit to Screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is File, Place Linked. And I'm going to go ahead and get my sketch. You will see this. This is the sketch idea that I had, inspired by Tyler Spangler and several of the other surrealist artists that we looked at. The idea for mine is just the idea of like hiding who you are, and like the flowers sort of over the face, being like, you know, sometimes you're bringing this better imagined version of yourself into situations, and just how we just don't allow ourselves to be as transparent as we need to be. So that was the thought behind the sketch, and it's also going to be, you can see the notes that I have here. So I'm going to say place. Now remember, this picture, you sketched this in your planning guide, and then you uploaded it to Google Drive, and then you downloaded the picture onto your computer. If you wanted to just look at it as a sketch instead of bringing it into Photoshop, that's fine, just as long as you're working from a reference image. So I'm going to say place, and then you can see that it will place right here. Now, one difference right away in Photoshop from Illustrator is in Illustrator you have to hold Shift down to constrain your proportions, which means make sure everything is not stretched out. In Photoshop, you don't need to do that. So you can just click and drag to make it smaller, and it will scale proportionately, which is nice. All right, I'm just going to bring that over here. Now I'm going to notice that I have my flowers here, my eyes, and I have a general plan of where I'm getting these things. But again, you know, when you're making art, it's kind of a conversation, and you have to leave room for you to go off of your plan and to have new ideas. And it's very fluid, so don't feel like, oh, I have to map this out exactly as I planned. If you have a different idea along the way, that's totally fine. Okay, I'm going to hit my check. And I'm going to look at my roses, and now I'm going to say, okay, my first step is to go get these in pixels. Now, if you have a photo of roses that you took, that's even better. If you don't, that's okay to use your copyright-free resources such as pixels. So you can see I already got my rose here. I did that by just looking up the word rose, and again, it's pexels.com. And I'm going to go ahead and go to free download. Say thanks. And then I'm going to open it up. Beautiful photo, very high resolution, and I'm going to save it. It's going to automatically save in downloads. I don't like to save anything in downloads because it's like where all your missing socks go. You will lose it if you save it in downloads. Save things to the cloud and to your desktop in a folder every time. All right. So now we're going to go again. Place linked. Same thing. You can see my rose pops right up, and it will automatically place onto a separate layer, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, now you remember how to do a selection, so we're going to review that. You can either say quick selection, or if you have an image with a very high contrast background, you can say select subject, and that should work. See, and that worked really well for our rose. And then we're going to say selected mask. And I'm just going to look at the edges and say, hey, you know what? That looks fantastic. I'm going to say, okay. And now you can either do one of two things. You can Command J, which will duplicate just your selection onto a new layer. See? That works. Or you can, I'm going to step back. Okay. Hit your mask down here, and it will mask out everything except for the rows. So there's slight differences in this. I'm going to actually opt for the first choice. Boop. I went back too far. So if you hit Command-Shift-Z, you can move forward. Okay. So let's do this again. Select subject, and we are going to Command-J. All right. Now this background, I don't need that anymore, so I can just delete that. And if you hit Command-T, that will allow you to move, to duplicate, to transform. And so I'm going to do a couple of these and how you're going to do it. So in Illustrator, you would press Option and click and drag. That doesn't work in Photoshop. In order to make another rose, you have to duplicate your layer. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I just like to hit Command-J a bunch of times.